Oh, that's loud, sorry. Okay, ding. Welcome, everybody, to the February Valentine's Board Meeting. We are all present here this evening. Everybody's in attendance. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you're able, please stand and join us in the pledge. Pledge allegiance. So thank you to the entire science department for coming out tonight. We have, first thing on the agenda is the science presentation. And I think the stars of the show are Tammy Darby and Jeff Bizon.
Testing. This one's on. Just want to slide that to the right. There you go.
Okay, good. Hi. Oh, Rose, I liked your, I like that. When I told my husband that I was coming up here, he asked if you guys were all going to have Valentines to exchange, or at least you have little spirit, little spirit. Well, welcome. Thank you for having us tonight. And we're going to start out by talking about the district goals. So the first goal being raise the bar. And this is mainly dealing with the 7 to 12. And the first thing we did, so going back like 6 years ago, we wanted to increase our mastery levels by 10%. But as you know, COVID put a little wrench in that. So what I did was look at our mastery levels pre-pandemic, so 2019, and then post-pandemic, and similar. So we'll probably, as a department, look at that again and adjust to where we'd like to see our mastery levels if we're looking to just maintain where we're at or increase. We saw the biggest gap in physics, and we've kind of analyzed that and talked about it quite a bit. The students have a 2-week gap between the last day of classes and when they take the exams. So we're looking at ways to, yeah, that's a long time, right? And they're seniors, so they get a little bit of senioritis. And so we're looking at ways that we can hold them accountable during those 2 weeks by having mandatory review sessions or having assignments that they do during that time period. And still having concerns over gap from remote and missed learning. We're still seeing some of that and learning ways to deal with that. We've continued to promote our science research and AP courses. We returned to in-person science research parent night this year. AP chemistry ran for the first time this year, and we have 8 students enrolled in that. And our physics enrollment, which I also want to point out. So when we're looking traditionally, we had 14 to 19 students enrolled in physics. And last year we had 39 and we have 24 currently. So we've really increased the students that we're challenging with those courses. So we would expect to see a change in our mastery level because we're getting a lot more students to challenge themselves. And then for close the gap, our biggest thing was that we did switch living environment and earth science to align with the rest of New York State. But both Nikki and I want to make sure we stick with maintaining our supported sections. That working closely with special ed has really helped increase student learning and provide a special environment that supports what their needs are. I think that's it. We're good? You got it? Good. And then our create values. So create innovative and engaging learning environments. We've returned to regular lab activities at the high school with no restrictions. Environmental class built their own drainway system. So Eric took the students to the wastewater treatment plant, to our new facility here in Lake George. And the students were so curious that they wanted to know what happens when you flush the toilet. And so he built a system. I've got a picture coming up of this. It's pretty cool. If you get a chance, it's still together, right? Oh, it's still, never mind. You can't see it. You'll see the picture. We're adding new content to the environmental course to include sustainability and survival skills. So we're looking forward to that, and based on student interests. And we're also adding two new half-year electives, one next year and one the following year. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. And student leadership. So again, we have our clubs: environmental club, chemistry club, astronomy club. We're back to more active clubs. I started a Girls in STEM monthly lunch group where we're talking about STEM careers and what students could do past high school dealing with STEM. And I just started that last month, so it's brand new. And Eric's students started a really cool student-led initiative recycling program this year. So that needed that revitalization. You want to do the last one?
Sure. So cultivating community partners, Lake George Association has been an awesome organization that we've partnered with over the last few years at the elementary school. Our STEM camp that we do every year, Lake George Association kind of comes in, they run a few stations with us. They have been awesome. We also do some after-school programs with them. I know Mr. Rosenbrock and I right now, we actually have fish tanks with Atlantic salmon in them, and Eric's are starting to hatch already. But by June, we actually release them into the stream, and they make their way into the lake. So it's really, really cool. And the Lake George Association provides us with those equipment and curriculum. What else is on there on the bottom? I can't see. This year too, our Lego League, first Lego League for the elementary school robotics team. We had a local engineer from GE come in and kind of collaborate with our students. He gave amazing feedback to the kids, really, commended their idea and kind of gave them a little push in the right direction. So that was a really cool partnership that we did this year. Yep, it says them already.
There's the drain system that they built.
And the testing flush. For next slide. Okay, so this slide right here, this school year, the 2022-2023 school year has been a really exciting one in the world of science. Last year was the last year of the 4th grade New York State test, and this year is kind of like a transition year. In May of last year too, the state released a memo about these new things called science investigations that you're going to hear me talk about in a little bit. They are for the elementary and intermediate levels. So right now in the 2022-2023 school year, there's currently no state assessment at the elementary level. The 8th grade test is going on as usual, I believe, but we're a year away from some big changes. Okay, so one big change for next year is the brand new grade 5 and grade 8 science assessment. It is going to be computer-based. There's a sample of what the test may look like available on right now, and it's definitely a big change to what they've done previously, but it aligns really well with some pretty exciting things that we can learn in science. So here we go, the investigations. I put a quote up here from NICED. So basically, when I heard of the investigation, I couldn't help but think that it was a test. Turns out it's actually a lab that is meant to be a very high quality piece of science instruction that students in grades 3 through 5 and middle school 6 through 8 will do as part of their instruction. 15% of the questions, 15% of the content from both investigations will be on the grade 5 and grade 8 assessment. And it's kind of hard to see there, but there are 4 investigations for grades 3 through 5 and grades 6 through 8. Currently, tomorrow, actually, I'm actually about to finish one called Cloud in a Bottle for third grade, which has been really, really fun. A big takeaway of the investigations too, I should say, is that it focuses on the science and engineering practices. So that's basically, instead of like reading about science, the kids are actually scientists. So they're carrying out, they're collecting data, they're reporting it to the classmates, and they're drawing conclusions from their data to kind of make sense of what's going on. So really, really cool stuff. Again, at the bottom there, 15% of the content from the investigations, and really that's probably going to be like 1 or 2 questions from each investigation will probably be embedded some way into the new assessments at grade 5 and grade 8. And then for this slide right here, this year, like I was saying a little while ago, it's been a big year for science instruction. K-5 and 6-8, we've had teams of teachers attend professional development trainings at Wishy-Bosie's. Yesterday, a 4th grade teacher and I actually went, and we got to learn about the investigation, a certain investigation, and we got to do it as a student and a teacher, and that's really been awesome. It makes the transition and implementation, I'd say, easier for our staff. As at first, it does seem really daunting, but you really kind of get the innermost workings of it and realize that this is high-quality science instruction. Tammy?
And then 7 through 12, so I'll talk a little bit more about that, the additional classes. So we will be putting in money for professional development, or putting in a request for professional development to create those 2 new courses. So one of the courses is anatomy and physiology, and then the other course is current topics in science. And what we're currently thinking is the first 3 weeks will be spent with instruction on all the hot topics in science, and then the students as a class will vote what they're going to continue researching. And so it will be a student-led, student-based research course that will start out with us kind of introducing them to those topics. And then with the sustainability, we're hoping at some point to get where all of us are kind of adding to that sustainability class. What is our strong point with that? You know, I know Mrs. McGrath likes bees and honey. I garden. And so, you know, if we can each, we're going to fly fish, right? So we're just going to add like little things to it. We're just kind of just throwing out ideas and talking about what would work for that. So we need time to develop those. We're also looking for collaboration on the K-12 with all these new investigations. And one of the things we're really hoping to do next year is a science club for 5th and 6th graders. So during 10th period, we shoot the schedule out for the whole year. And once a month, we investigation or activity that we would do with our students. So September might be physics, and October might be chemistry, and November might be earth science. And so our students would help lead those projects and investigations. So the students could sign, 5th and 6th graders can sign up or not. It would be, open one month and not the next month, but it would give them some exposure to this building and to the teachers that they would be having. Okay, so here is the data. So the first column is Lake George passing rate, and the second column is New York State. So with, and then the next 2 columns are Lake George mastery, and then New York State mastery. Do you all have access to that on your computers? So I'll give you a minute to look at that. Are we good?
Can I go to the next slide?
Yeah.
Okay, so future focus and goals. So K-5 has really been doing a lot of work this year, but we're really focusing on middle school too. So our 6th grade teachers are in the elementary school, and the 6th grade science investigation, I have to say, is a real doozy. It's on earth science. So we're trying to really get some collaboration with our 6th grade teachers, with the 7th and 8th grade teachers. This summer, I know we're all going to be over here at the junior senior high school having STEM camp and a lot of professional development, but we have a plan in place to kind of get us to collaborate this summer that I'm really looking forward to. I really think I need glasses, Tammy. I got to take a couple steps closer here. Yeah, but The other big thing too for middle school, with these investigations, again, that's basically what the state is saying is what high quality science instruction should look like. So at the K-5 and 6-8 level, we're really reviewing our current programs to make sure that they, meet the needs and what these new assessments are going to look like. So it's really exciting to get to see some stuff from New York State, and we are definitely making sure we're in alignment and preparing our students for it.
I'm going to have to openly admit I had LASIK in February. It is making a huge difference. I can see that clearly. I would not if it was last year. All right, so in the spring of 2022, so last spring, our department set a goal to increase rigor and encourage students to challenge themselves to enhance critical thinking. And so we're still kind of working on that, pushing that science concept of critical thinking and really increasing the rigor. Developing the 5th and 6th grade science club, collaboration that would be with all of us, with our students, a way to identify students for AIS, science AIS earlier. So English AIS and math AIS usually are pretty clear because of state testing. So we need to look at ways that we can identify students that might need AIS going into 9th grade for science. We also kind of tossed around an idea of turning the main hallway downstairs into kind of a learning hallway. And we thought we would do like a scale model of the solar system across the top of the lockers and a geologic time scale. And then kind of having murals that had interaction where the students could answer questions and they would be on the murals. So those are just some ideas that we've tossed around.
I think that's it. Does anybody have any questions? Be happy to entertain them.
Thank you. Janine?
How in the world did you increase the physics student numbers so much? Because
I'm gonna give this to Bill. So he actually has been promoting it. So he is the chemistry teacher, and it really happened with him. So when he came here, he started talking to students, saying to them, "You need to take physics. What are you doing? Challenge yourself." So I'm going to give him props for that because I do think that he was a big contributor for those numbers increasing.
Wow, that's awesome. Nice job. I better work harder.
I'm sure that works in combination with the math department because you need quite a bit of math for physics, but nice job. I like the increase in rigor that you had in offering a couple AP classes that you weren't offering before and stepping that up. That's really impressive. Thank you so much.
He really pushed for it, and I think it's a
Uh-huh.
good thing.
Yep, kids stepped up.
Just a couple things that I love the connection with the partnerships with the wastewater, our local wastewater treatment plant, LGA and GE. It's wonderful to have those partnerships for kids to meet people out in the community, doing their day-to-day jobs, so they can make that connection of why am I learning this and get them excited. I love that there's so much hands-on, and there's a lot of things that are based on the kids' curiosity, like the flushing of the toilet. They want to know, so you make it happen, and they to feed into that curiosity. I mean, that's really great. And I love the connection with the elementary students who are going to be coming up here, the 5th and 6th graders, and then the 6th, 7th, and 8th connection. That's great. There was a lot of notes I took that I was excited about. So those were just a couple things. Thank you so much for being here tonight and for your huge team for coming out and all the work you do. We really, really appreciate it. Makes me want to go back to science class. So anybody else have anything? All right. Thank you so much. Okay. Next up, we have the non-instructional budget presentation with our business administrator, Lynn Durway. Thank you, Lynn.
Good evening, and I'm happy to kick off the budget presentations with the non-instructional portion of the budget. We always start with our mission statement. It's kind of our guiding structure for everything we do here, as you know. And I want to remind everyone that the budget is actually a process, and it spans over several months. It's almost as soon as one is adopted, we start working on the other one. So not all costs are known at this time. We've used some projections. For instance, the BOCES cost we won't have until next month. But moving forward, these are the 4 areas that are included in the non-instructional budget: the Board of Education, Administrative Services, Central Services, and Transportation Services. So you have this year's budget in the first column, the proposed budget in the next column, the dollar change, and the percent change. So overall, this portion of the budget is up a little over $240,000 or 6.91%. And this shows you in pie chart fashion how that breaks up, with the Board of Education being the smallest portion at 1%, followed by Administrative Services, Transportation Services, and Central Services being the largest component. So starting with the Board of Education, the proposed budget is just a little over $52,000, or an increase of a little over $1,600. And this covers professional development, supplies, BOCES services, our district clerk, and our district meeting. So here you see 2 of our elementary students with their new story walk signs. Looking at administrative services, we have Superintendent Luthringer reading holiday stories to the elementary students. Again, this represents 22% of the portion of non-instructional expenses. So much the same. We have salaries, contractual, materials and supplies, and BOCES charges for the different departments: superintendents, confidential secretary, the business office, our auditing, tax collection, fiscal agent fees, legal services, records management, and our communications specialist. Next, we'll look at central services, which is the largest portion, as I said, at 53%. And a proposed budget of just under $2 million, or an increase of almost $85,000. The biggest portion is the operations and maintenance budget, also referred to as buildings and grounds. We also have printing and mailing costs here, BOCES data processing, insurance, tax refunds, dues, and BOCES administrative charges. The BOCES administrative charges are based on our number of students as it relates to our entire BOCES. And here we have a student looking at his dictionary from the Lake George Rotary Club. So looking at operations and maintenance, each year we prioritize our needs, and with the number of acres and the number of square footage in our buildings, the needs is always greater than our budget. So we do that prioritization. So the areas that we're going to be looking at for next year: the high school auditorium audio system, obsolete door access cameras in the high school, damaged fencing at the elementary school, the external PA at the elementary school, replacing basketball backboards in the high school gym, and this is something that's going to be done every year for a while, and adding mulch at the elementary school. We're also looking at replacing the bridge on our cross-country trail at the elementary school with a culvert, our annual carpet replacement, and all materials and supplies, contractual expenses, inspections, permits, training, etc. Also still being considered year 1 of a 3-year project to improve door security at the high school. And here you have 2 students working on their sustainable energy project, which was probably part of the science department. And lastly, transportation services, which represent 24% of this portion of the budget. And they're just a little over $886,000, an increase of $144,000. A lot of that increase has to do with fuel costs, which everybody knows we've seen increase. And also 2 of our vans were surplus this year. So we're planning to purchase 2 new ones at a cost of $65,000 total on state contract. There also is going to be a separate proposition for a bus purchase, and we're leaning toward 2 buses on that proposition. This wording is from last year. It's just used as an illustration. And last year we purchased 1 bus at a cost of $116,000. That came in December. We have seen a significant price increase of 30%. So we're looking at a price of $151,100 per bus for next year. And these are funded through a bond anticipation note, which has a life of 5 years. So you're spreading out the cost. We have a 10-year vehicle replacement plan. So this is in accordance with that 10-year replacement plan. The governor came out with a proposed budget on January 31st, which is fairly typical. And state aid is to be fully funded at the foundation aid levels. We're already there. So for us, we received the minimum increase of 3%, which represents a figure of $49,558. State aid total, $2.4 million, represents about 10% of our total budget, which means the local taxpayers are footing the majority of the share. So the New York State is scheduled to adopt a budget by April 1st, and that will be what we can go to the bank with, so to speak. So looking at our future board meetings, in March, we'll look at the instructional portion of the budget, April, we'll look at the undistributed portion and also the revenue side. And that's when the board will have to adopt the proposed budget in order to submit it to taxpayers on May 16th. May 2nd will be the public hearing and meet the candidates night. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you.
Oh, wait.
Sure.
So looking at this, the pie chart, I love the pie chart showing the percentages of what things go to. Is that in line with what we've done in the past? Is transportation quite a bit larger than that percentage? That pie chart?
That's fairly typical of
That
what
is-
we've done
Mhm.
prior years. But you're right, transportation is assuming a little bit of a larger
bit more.
share.
Okay. And we've had stakeholder questions before in central services about printing and mailing and concerns. Now that we have digital capabilities, are we able to reduce printing and mailing? And can you talk about that just a little bit?
I think this district has made some decisions in the past to continue with a lot of our mailing. I haven't heard that that's going to change. But as the volume goes down, the cost of postage is going up. So it's almost like an equalizing factor.
That's a good point.
So I would think those conversations could continue at the administrative level and of course the board level if we choose to change the way we're communicating.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else? Thank you very much. Next up, we have the elementary update with Mr. Jim Conway.
So not only is it Valentine's Day, but it's also the 100th day of school. So you can imagine the elementary school today with all of that going on. It was a pretty high energy place. I know that Jeff left, but so Jeff Bezon is overseeing a lot of these science investigations. And one of the ones that we do now is that third grade, the kids don't do this, but the teachers have to light matches to create a cloud in a bottle. So it was exciting, but we were a little nervous too that we were going to set off the smoke alarms, but that did not happen. We made it through our third grade investigations without setting off the fire alarm. So that was a good thing. So a couple events that recently happened that I want to mention. Mr. Luthringer was able to see his first air band, Lake George Elementary style, and it was a great night. And I do want to thank a couple of parents, Monica Mondella and Nikki Natsky, who took over that responsibility with our PTSO. They did a wonderful job. It actually was a great fundraiser, which is going to defray the cost for our sixth grade trips at the end of the year. So I wanted to share that. Also, Math Night was held last Wednesday, and we had I think it was about 200 students and parents. I didn't get the final number, but a big crowd of kids and families going through the building. And it was an event that cabinet members take on as an action team. Elena Levine and Ashley Gershon. Ashley's out there tonight. And it was a great event, celebrating math, families traveling through the building, doing all sorts of activities at different stations. Some upcoming events. PARP, we've put like different spins on over the course of time. And this action team that Mr. Crotty and Mrs. Steves are leading has a lot happening. But March 6th to March 31st, we're doing a school-wide, like the entire, or not the entire staff, but many of the staff members are going to be involved in a reader's theater for our kids. Mrs. Crossman brings in an author or authors each year. Chris Grabenstein, author of the Limoncello series, the Smartest Kid series, Dog Squad series, a lot of exciting books for our kids. He's going to be on March 10th. So I want to share that. Battle of the Books, Monday, March 13th at SUNY Adirondack, and the elementary school will have teams at 3rd through 6th grade, as we always do, and we're proud of their success. And Mrs. Crossman does a great job leading those students. And you talk about experiences being up in front of a lot of people. That is as intense as any sporting event that I've ever been to or my kids have participated in, when you're up in front of an audience and you have to answer a pretty tough reading comprehension question. The Bob Ross Memorial Education Fund, I wanted to mention. The Ross family, in memory of Bob, who was a principal at the elementary school, legendary principal for 20 years, did some amazing things, certainly for the students of the district. The family, in his honor, has created scholarships for our high school students at graduation time, but also they are starting a fund, an education fund, which is significant, where our staff is able to apply for grants up to $3,000 annually for special programming for our students. So I wanted to recognize and thank the Ross family for that, and I'm really excited to see where we go with that grant money and what we do for our students in Bob's name. We talked a little bit tonight about careers in the curriculum meeting and then at this meeting, but on Tuesday, March 21st, we are having our first career fair, career night at the elementary school. Our counselor, Zoe Chodak, is working with our PTSO, and it's an evening where we have professionals throughout the community, throughout the region, in very unique jobs. Positions that will open the eyes up to students, and the idea is that the kids are traveling kind of like with a little passport, where they'll make their way to hear little mini presentations from people that are in a wide variety of careers. So we're excited about that and the work that our counselors, our K-12 department, and certainly Zoe is doing for the elementary school. So some important events that have happened and some that are coming up. Any questions?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next up is the secondary update with Mr. Fran Kokoza.
Hi, good evening. So February board meeting, we're always pleased to announce the top 10% of the senior class. This year we have 7 in the honor group because there are 66 students in the senior class. I'll say their names very quickly in alphabetical order. Brianna Chalemi, Tiffany Cornelius, Dasha Kutz, Samantha Gorey, Sarah Castle, Dan Nichols, and Samantha Tennyson. And as you well know, this honor group plans graduation, and they will be starting right after February break. So we're excited to announce the top 10 for Lake George High School. As you may know, last week, the high school administered to grades 7 through 12 the biennial, every other year, Council for Prevention survey to all of our students. We will internally receive that survey results. We'll review them and make adjustments as needed and as relevant. And as we glean more information from that survey from our students, we'll be sharing that out. It focuses on the choices that our teenagers in this building make inside the building and outside the building. So we're looking forward to those results because it's been a while with COVID since we've had that survey. Some dates to save the date for. Our naturalization ceremony is back. Thanks to Bonnie Hart and Judge Stewart. It'll be Friday, March 24th in the morning through an assembly schedule in the morning on Friday, March 24th. You are all welcome to that naturalization ceremony. I know many of you attended it the last time. Hopefully the next day the world doesn't change like it did the last time. We additionally are having our own career fair. It's our annual career job summer fair here at the high school on Thursday, March 30th, in which we bring in over 30 area employers to meet with our sophomore, junior, and senior class. We expose our freshmen to it as well. And our 7th and 8th grade students will have some career-focused activities while the high school students are at the career fair. I want to sign them up and get some summer jobs so they can make some money this summer. I know many of you will be excited to hear this, that the Student Advocacy Gallery is coming back. So we're branding it as Student Advocacy Gallery 2, that's Roman numeral 2, on Thursday, May 11th at 6 p.m. in the evening. Azram Tarar is facilitating that, and I know at some point she'll be presenting information to you all about the Advocacy Gallery. Her main focus this year is to expand it beyond what it was the last time you saw it. And the final save the date, it's never too early to start training, as Mr. Murphy would say. Our 22nd Randy's Run and 10th Murphy's Mile will be on Saturday, May 20th in the morning at Lake George Elementary School. And it's a great community event, which involves both schools on Saturday, May 20th. That's the high school update.
Do you have any questions? Thank you both, Jim and Fran. I love the elementary report and the secondary report. It's always so exciting to hear about a little more details about what the fun activities and opportunities for our students at the elementary school and the high school. So thank you both. Next, we have Mr. John Luthringer, our superintendent, with the superintendent's report.
Thank you so much. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. It's nice to see you all and be here. I was sharing earlier, I did get flowers and things for my wife this weekend so she can enjoy them, knowing we would be out a lot this week. So I'm sure we'll catch up later this week and have some dinner together. But I do have a few things I want to update the board on, and one of them is, as you know, as I mentioned previously, in regards to the state's mandate in the use of Native American imagery, that is, Lake George is part of that. And we have established a student advisory committee, a group of students. So just to talk you through this process and where we're at with this, last month we met in a joint meeting with Student Council, Varsity Club, and many student athletes. And Mr. Kokoza and I did a presentation on the regulations and mandate that's expected of schools across New York State. We, by a show of hands, said how many students were aware of this, and every student raised their hand. So it's not something that is foreign to our students. They're aware of it. They are obviously reading the newspaper and aware. So out of that, we presented, and then we asked students that were interested to join a smaller committee to really work towards goals and a charge of that committee as we proceed over the next coming months. So we did have our first student advisory committee meeting last Monday. It was a wonderful meeting. It was a productive meeting. We spent the better part of over an hour together with this group of students. So we have approximately 9 students ranging from grades 7 through 12. A variety of different students from that are involved in all sorts of different things, and they were all in attendance, which was wonderful. So at that first meeting, our goal of that meeting was to develop a charge of that of the student committee, and of that. So I'm just going to read the goals and charge that we came up with, and the students really aligned with. So number 1 was to develop a thorough understanding of the Lake George school history that includes a history of the logo, mascot, and nickname. Gain a deeper understanding of the local history pertaining to Native American culture and Lake George local and school history. Help define and make suggestions on the 3 areas, which is the logo, mascot, and nickname. Be a liaison and ambassador between the school and student body. And communicate and help communicate our plan to the Board of Education, the school, community groups, the community, and other organizations as we learn more about our specific obligations. So we talked about that, we developed that charge, and then we spent the majority of the time really studying the history of Lake George, going all the way back to the early 1920s and even the teens. And we spent time looking at old yearbooks, and the students were really engaged and really interested in the history of Lake George. Every student learned something. And then they also helped us really provide the agenda for the next meeting. So we are meeting on March 6th. We're going to be meeting every few weeks here. And really the goal of our next meeting is to really have a better understanding of the regulation. That was one of the specific questions one of the students asked. And then also further understand Native American history and the perspective from Native Americans on being, used as a mascot over the course of time. So we're going to really investigate those things. One piece I'll just share here is going back to the history. One of the students were really interested, and they didn't know that there was multiple different nicknames over a course of time. So, and we're going to talk more about that. Mr. Kokoza and I are going to do a formal presentation to the board at our March meeting on where we're, kind of that process, and we're going to go through the history of Lake George. But at one point, we were actually known as the Lake George Lakers for a number of years in the 40s, and we were also known as the Lake George Georgians. In addition to the Warriors. So just really interesting. The students really took a lot from our first meeting, and they're excited to come back and also help at some point present to the Board of Education and others as well. At this point, we're still waiting for additional information from the state. We know that it's coming. We know a stakeholder committee is meeting at the state level to really address and look at recommendations on nicknames in particular. So we'll present more information as we continue on here. A couple other items here. So each year, the district is provided with information from the state on our accountability. So there's the federal programs called ESSA. The state has to align to that. That stands for Every Student Succeed Act. So earlier this month, we got our report, our preliminary report on that. So and there's key indicators that they look at. So there was 4 last year. Obviously, coming out of COVID, there were some adjustments to that. So one of them has to do with achievement, so state assessments, region scores, core subject performance in math and ELA, graduation rate, and chronic absenteeism were the 4 indicators that the state took a close look at. So when we submit data to the state, they take a look at that, and then they provide us a score, essentially. So our score actually was called, so bear with me, it's called Local Support and Improvement. That's the highest score you can receive, though, and it was formerly known as Good Standing. The reason they changed that was because their schools are always in a continuous cycle of improvement. So they don't want you just to rest on your laurels that you're a good standing school. So they changed it to LSI, which is Local Support and Improvement. We're always looking to improve locally. So it is great news for us. We obviously within there, as we drill down in that data, you're scored in all those categories on a 1 through 4. So there are some that are 3s, there are some that are lots of 4s, there are some that are 2. So we're really looking closely at that and really how we can kind of address maybe some predictors of areas that we need to improve upon. But we'll have more information on that as we get further along here. I also just want to mention, as I mentioned, graduation rate. Our graduation rate, we just received that data. So our 4-year graduation rate was 94%, up from 90%. So we had a 4% increase. So something to be proud of. I know in our school, with smaller class sizes, even 1 or 2 students that don't reach graduation does impact our score. But certainly we're excited about that 4% increase and continuing to always strive towards 100%. We had a great meeting today with Behavioral Health Services North. You've heard me mention this before. We have been working with them really since September to have them come in and provide outside counseling services to our students. So we are at the point where the Office of Mental Health of New York State has approved us. We have a clinician starting on February 28th. We had our meeting today with the administrative team and our mental health counselors from each building. So again, this program is really designed to provide schools with a school-based mental health services that for students that might need a little bit more than from our school counselors or our social workers. And there's a referral process for that. Our school counselors will work with families, make recommendations. There's a referral form that needs to be filled out. And then that student, though, can receive those additional services during the school day at school. So this is a really great way to provide further intervention for students. Parents don't have to go outside and really find where it's very difficult to find additional counseling. It just reduces a lot of barriers for these families. And in addition to that, BHSN is working in 29 local regional school districts with great success. They've opened a new facility on Bay Road. They recently, as part of that, just opened up a pharmacy within that facility. So again, really being progressive and trying to help families who don't have to travel to multiple different spots to get medication, to get counseling, to see a doctor. They can go to sort of a one-stop shop. So we're really excited about this partnership. There's no cost to the district for this. It's really a great opportunity. We're starting with 2 days a week total. So there'll be 1 day in the elementary school on Wednesdays and 1 day in the high school on Tuesdays. So we're excited to meet our clinician. We got to meet with her today. Her name's Rachel, and she's a licensed clinician, and we're excited to get started with that. So more information to come on that, but we're there, which is exciting. Just 2 quick last updates. We also had a kickoff meeting on Monday for our transportation facility project with Tetra Tech and Schoolhouse Construction. It was a great first meeting. It was a big day for us as we're entering that design phase. So that day included visits to the existing facility, visits with up to the site up at the elementary school, and then a kickoff meeting with our team. So it included, there must have been at least a dozen or so people, and I'm thinking, and so engineers from all different categories, civil engineers, plumbing engineers, all sorts of different engineers from Tetra Tech, representatives from Schoolhouse, and we really got through our agenda of really a planning agenda and start looking at the scope of this project. So a lot more to come. We have monthly meetings as we lead into the design phase, and we're excited to get going. And the last thing is February break's coming up here, so I wish everyone a happy and healthy break, especially our students and teachers, as we know this has been a long winter, although it's been pretty beautiful actually. But February, while every one of our teachers goes away for break, our building and ground staff, this is their I would say bread and butter time, because everyone's out of the building. So our new director of facilities, Mr. Parrott, has an extensive list of projects that are going to be getting done in February. One of the pieces also is the preparation work for our HVAC project that's going to start in April break. So we're using this time to get some of our contractors in from TBS and some of the other contractors that will be doing the installations. They're going to come in and do a lot of preparation work. So I'll share more as we get closer to April, but during April break, we're actually going to be replacing 9 of our HVAC units in this building, leading to a much larger project in April. And just to remind the board that the HVAC project was paid through the federal stimulus funds. So there's a lot going on as usual here at school. We're excited about all the things that I mentioned here and the great work that we're doing with our students and our teachers. And obviously you see some of that in the presentations tonight. So that's all I have for me. If the board has any questions.
Thanks, John. I would just, the behavioral health clinician, I was just a couple questions. I was just wondering, is that person a prescribing provider? And will that person, do you have a sense of like how long that, like the capacity or how will there be a presence in both buildings on, one building on, will they be at the high school and at the elementary school and capacity? And also, is there a relationship between that individual and our medical director?
So to answer your questions, Wednesday will be the elementary school. The licensed clinician is essentially a counselor, but there is medical management pieces. There is a doctor that can be part of that discussion that would be outside through BHSN as well. So as the counseling develops, if there's that type of need, discussion would happen with the family. So it does have that component for medical management. The clinician itself is not one to prescribe, but helps facilitate that discussion. The caseload for the clinician is 10 per day. So ideally, or essentially what could happen is it could be 10 students in the elementary school and 10 students in the high school. So she can see up to 10 students per day. She does have a dedicated location, a confidential location in each of the buildings. And Wednesday is the day for the elementary school and Tuesday is the day for the high school. Does that help answer? Okay, great.
think I missed it. When is that starting? I'm sorry.
Her first day is February 28th.
Okay.
So
Sorry.
she's,
I
the
missed-
first week is really going to be a lot of onboarding. So getting acclimated to our district, starting to meet with our school counselors. And the one beauty of this is that there is a relationship that's built between our staff and the clinician as well. She will be invited to meetings that, that might pertain to students that she counsels as well. So it's really a strong collaboration, but the first 2 days will essentially be onboarding and getting to meet people. And then she could essentially start seeing someone or students the following week in March.
Mentioned counselor and the student. How will the student be able to get those services without by other students, or I know teachers in the department a lot of it, just so they can feel comfortable seeking that, not worry about.
So that was one thing we talked about today is that working closely with our staff on what times would be best to pull. So it's very flexible. It's no different than I think when students might go out for additional services for academic services or and students, a lot of our students have counseling services now per their individual education plan or their 504 plan. So those are really up to the discretion of the building, but I know that it's absolutely taken with care and confidentiality, and maybe there's systems within the classroom and little, I remember as a teacher, I would have sometimes I would remind students with kind of some sort of signal or something that was only between me and the student. So I know those things exist, especially in the elementary world for sure.
And my other question was about the bus project where you had.
No, that was not the intention of this meeting. It was really specific for, it was the first meeting, and it was here in this building. So they visited just there, but it was our architectural firm and our construction management firm. So those are the companies that we're working with and contracting with for the project. So it was really a nuts and bolts meeting. There was really no reason for the community to be there.
I've got a question in terms of these services. What's the communication with family if a student is seeking services?
So one of the things we talked about, we got a great flyer from BHSN today. So we're going to communicate that out to all families via Parent Square so they're aware of these services. And then how that will work with students in particular that might be referred is that's an individual conversation with the school counselors to that family. So our school counselors, they're not going to get a phone call from the clinician before someone from the school district has talked to them about the benefits of the program and the benefits that they might see of their child being able to go for just some additional counseling. So there'll be a process for that. It's all worked out through the referral form, but we're going to put out information by the end of the week to all families so they're aware of the opportunity here.
Anybody else? John, thank you to you and Mr. Kokoza for the work with the students, the Student Advisory Committee, and giving that student voice for our Native American imagery. I'm really pleased to hear that their excitement about it and all their questions, their willingness to learn and participate fully. So thank you for spearheading that to both of you. Anybody else? Anything? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Mario Fasulo, who is our Chair of the Audit and Finance Committee, with the monthly report.
Like taxes, $711,000. I don't need it. Okay. Thank you. Better? We also collected state aid of almost $23,000 and interest of 49. That was just in November. In December, we also collected 209,000 in state aid and interest of 55,000. So right now our interest is at about 4%. We try to leave the money in there as long as we can until we absolutely need it. So we leave it, let it grow. Nothing on the claim auditors report. We did review what's called an RFP, request for proposals. That's for accounting firms that audit schools. We review the contracts and extend proposals for consideration per the state. It's something that we have to do. We also got a request from the Village of Lake George proposing an agreement similar to a pilot program, payment in lieu of taxes. It's going to be a 20-year program that's going to increase 5% a year for the wastewater plant that they built. The lawyers reviewed all the paperwork, everything is in line, and this would be effective March 1st, and we're gonna vote on it later. And we also reviewed, which was really good news, the New York State Comptroller's physical stress test or monitoring system. The district is not experiencing any physical stress, which a lot of us know that. We're in good financial position in regards to physical issues and environmental issues, which was great to hear. And the last thing was the proposal that Lynn reviewed earlier. And that was it. Any questions on that?
Thank you, Mario.
Thank you.
Next up is the Buildings and Ground Committee report with the chair of that committee, Janine Bieber.
All right, thanks. We had our last Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting on January 10th. Our new facilities director, Mr. Parrott, he gave a report out, which was great to hear. He seems to be very pleased with the transition. He thanked Kurt very much for making that transition so smooth. He's got a lot of energy, and he sounds so committed to making sure that this building is basically the shining glory of this village. His personal goal, I like it, that we have here, is to create a wow factor for people driving by the high school. So I liked his commitment to that. He talked about working with the staff. Relationships are going well. That we've had some new staff members hired that he's looking forward to working with. So yeah, a very positive report from Kevin, and it was enjoyable to listen to it. So that was great. John already mentioned what was happening with the HVAC project. So that was part of our discussion in terms of the timeline and the work that would be done in April, and then also the work that will be done this summer with that project. And then otherwise, the last part of our discussion had to do with the new transportation facility, but we had already taken care of that business at the last board meeting. So that was about it.
Any questions? Thank you, Janine. Our next committee report is the Culture and Climate Committee, and Tricia Biles, the chair of that committee, is going to report out on that.
Thanks. So we met for our annual Culture and Climate Committee meeting on January 17th. We reviewed our charge, creating a school climate where everyone is important, welcome, safe, and valued. And the majority of the meeting was a presentation by Superintendent Luthringer of the climate survey results. And I don't know if Mr. Conway and Mr. Kokoza were having some sort of a competition of participation for their students, but they tied. They were both the elementary participation and the junior senior high were 76% participation. So that was great. Yes. So the results were fantastic. There's some wonderful feelings about the climate of Lake George schools. And we recognize that with a lot of the positive percentages in the 90%, we have a lot to be proud of. That said, there's always room for improvement. I think John hit home on that the great thing is that this is the start. We can look at this data and we can see who are we not hearing from. And for those who we did hear from, what are some of the concerns that they might have about the culture and climate of the school? All of this information is in direct alignment with our student-centered learning environment policy. And the one piece that we did not have a lot of data and a lot of participation was with the parents. Yeah. So that data that we have is not as strong and solid as the student data. So we talked about, what would be the next level focus with the Culture and Climate Committee. Certainly, as John and his team work on dialing down this data, we'll get more information. But what we want to hear, I think, next year is asking the question, how does Lake George engage parents? Just really generally. And then that could be a presentation to Culture and Climate. Very important question and very important task of a school district. And we also mentioned that this fantastic data can be put out into our promotional materials and celebrated in many different forms. Any questions?
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks.
That's exciting that our students had such high participation in the survey. That's awesome. Next committee report is the Policy Committee report with the chair of that committee, Marianne McKenzie.
Okay. First thing, I just want to mention that there's an amended copy of the policy minutes from our January policy meeting attached to the report tonight. And that's just simply because I made a clerical error. When I typed up the minutes originally, a policy was left off by accident, so the correct copy is listed tonight. Let's see, we have got 8 policies listed for second read this evening, and each of those policies was discussed at the last board meeting. We have got 5 policies moving forward to first read tonight, and I'll go through each of those. The first one is 3281, Student and Staff Community Memorials. And we've mentioned this in the past, but just to review, this policy came before the policy committee by superintendent referral, secondary to recognizing the need for some process and uniformity regarding requests for memorials. This policy was developed at the district level, then reviewed in policy committee, went back to the district level for fine tuning, back to policy, and now moving forward. Nice, beautiful new policy for first read. The next policy is 6130, evaluation of personnel. And this policy came before the policy committee by Erie 1 update in light of changes in terminology. Specifically, the annual professional performance review, otherwise known as APPR, is now being called by NYSED educator evaluation plans. And the policy really has just been revised so that both names are used so that it's clear that one is the same as the other. The third policy is 6550, leaves of absence. This is also an Erie 1 update that brought this policy before the committee. And the policy was revised secondary to amendments to labor law, section 206C, which expands the rights of nursing employees to express milk in the workplace. And this takes effect on June 7th, 2023, and requires the district to provide pumping spaces that are, I'll list them because it's very specific, that are in close proximity to work areas, that are well lit, shielded from view, and free from public interruption. The space needs to have a chair, working surface, nearby access to clear running water, and an electrical outlet, and cannot be a restroom or toilet stall. In addition, in this policy, it's noted that once the Commissioner of Labor develops a policy around the rights of nursing employees, the district will be required to provide that policy to all employees upon hire and annually thereafter. The next one is, let's see here, I'm doing it a little bit out of order, 7670, which is due process complaints, selection, and board appointment of impartial hearing officer. And this is a required policy that came before us by way of Erie 1 update, secondary to amendments to Ed Law Section 4404 and Commissioner of Education regulations, which provides a process by which parents can request to have an independent hearing officer, otherwise also known as an IHO, immediately appointed to conduct an accelerated review, if the district has not appointed one within 196 days from a due process complaint. When an accelerated review is sought, the district will be deemed to have denied the student a free and appropriate public education, also called FAPE. And yeah, so that's what this revision is reflective of. And the policy was additionally revised to include language around video and teleconference options. And then the last policy moving forward tonight is 5323, reimbursement for meals and refreshments. And this came before the policy committee by just our manual review. And there were no substantive changes. There was, I think, just one wordsmithing adjustment. And so that is also moving forward for first read. Additionally, we reviewed two other policies by through our Lake George manual review, and they are 5210 revenues and 5321 use of the district credit card. We reviewed them and have no recommended changes. So those will just receive an updated date of review and don't need to move through first read and second read. And other than that, the policy committee meets again on March 6th. That's my report. Any questions?
Thank you, Mary Ann. Next on the agenda is our first public comment period. And we have one person who signed up. If for some reason you have a comment and you didn't sign up, you're still welcome to come forward. We ask that people sign up so that we just can have an orderly calling of folks up and also have contact information to get back to you. Before we start the public comment, I just want to read my monthly thing that I read about the public comment. The Lake George Central School District Board of Education welcomes district residents and parents and other interested persons to the meetings. Community involvement at board meetings is encouraged so that the board can better understand and represent the views of our constituents. Please be aware that by law, individual student information or particular personnel issues cannot be discussed at public sessions of the board. When you come to the microphone, please let us know your name and limit your statements to 3 minutes. The board and district take your public comments very seriously, and careful notes of questions and concerns will be taken so that they can be addressed as soon as possible. The first public comment period is for items on the agenda. And if you're attending virtually and you have a comment or question, if you send an email to boe@lkgeorge.org, the board members and Superintendent John Luthringer will be able to view these emails after the meeting. Thank you in advance for helping to maintain a safe and respectful decorum to the meeting. We have one person signed up, Lisa Doster. Am I pronouncing that right? Is it Doster? Doster? Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Lisa Doster. In regard to the HVAC project, it's great to see our school will be finally getting the upgrades it needs in air conditioning and ventilation throughout our school. We need it, so thank you. Congrats also to the Kansas City Chiefs for winning the Super Bowl. Here's an example where Native American imagery still exists in team sports today and is carried out in a professional manner. At Sunday's game, a historic leap was made by including Indigenous people and culture into the many parts of the Super Bowl. Kudos to them. Last fall, our students were getting back on track after COVID, and we had 2 sports headed for state titles, football and volleyball. And in that excitement, right before going to states, when we should be standing behind our students and lifting them to succeed and be positive, instead, we pull the rug out from underneath them to speak, with bad timing and disappointment, announcing the removal of what we stand for, our warrior name and heritage imagery. An announcement that could have waited until after the state games. On another note, inflation is on a major rise. Everything is becoming very expensive. New York State is adding multiple budget mandates to our taxes locally. With these hardships, this district should be looking to slow its spending and be fiscally responsible. So why at times like this are we looking to spend thousands of district money to send this board to a NYSBA conference in Florida in April? Didn't NYSBA initiate the FBI against parents that then resulted in 26 states to leave NYSBA altogether? Anyway, we just worked so hard getting ourselves up to speed with a new policy to handle things virtually when needed. And in order to cut costs, instead of many of you physically flying to stay and attend, I suggest to participate virtually to save our district money, and it will also result to work within our climate initiatives. $80 to $100 in spending versus thousands is more acceptable in times like these. The thousands of dollars could be better used to rebuild our stands on our football field, help in student initiatives, or look, we had a tragic loss of a student last year, and that money could be used to honor that student and add support to that family. In conclusion, we see what this board is looking to present, and this may differ drastically to what others in the district feel. If we wonder why there is really a drop in parental responses to surveys, because as parents, we are not being listened to or valued. We really need to think about what we are doing and its conveyed perception. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Is there anyone else who did not sign up who would like to come forward for public comment? Okay. Okay, our next item organized here is the school business consent agenda.
As recommended by the superintendent, be resolved that the Board of Education of Lake George Central School District hereby approves the school business consent agenda items A through H. In summary, item H is a motion to approve the January 10th board minutes. Item B, to approve the February 2023 CSE Committee on Special Education recommendations. Item C is to approve the treasurer and extracurricular activities funds and warrants. Item D is to approve the claims auditors reports. Item E is a motion to accept the agreement between Lake George Central School District and the Village of Lake George with the partial real property tax exemption that Mr. Fazzulo presented in his report on audit and finance. Item F is a motion to accept the community solar subscription agreement. This is an agreement that was also discussed at audit and finance, reviewed by our attorneys, that could program that could cost nothing to the district and could save 10% on our electricity costs. Item G is a motion to accept the 2022-2023 professional learning plan as required by New York State. Item H is the customary practice for our policy review as presented. And that is it.
Have any questions, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. The next item is the 2023-2024 school calendar.
As recommended by the superintendent, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Lake George Central School District hereby approves the 2023-2024 school calendar.
Second.
Any questions, any discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Next item is the faculty, next section's faculty staff recognitions, and under that, faculty staff consent agenda.
As recommended by the superintendent, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Lake George Central School District hereby approves the faculty staff consent appointments, items A through F. In summary, item A is a motion to appoint Cynthia Didio to the position of substitute math teacher effective January 30th through February 13th, and the provision there to extend that based on circumstances in regards to her substitute position. Item B is a motion to appoint Tammy Wilson to the position of probationary cleaner nights in the non-competitive class of the civil service effective February 21st, 2023. Item C is a motion to amend the 2022-2023 substitute list of employees not hired through BOCES. Item D is a motion to approve the amended 2022-23 extracurricular and co-curricular list. Item E is a motion to approve the amended 2022-2023 coaches list and volunteer coaches list. And item F is a motion to approve the unpaid leave of absence request for Lisa Fox, effective July 3rd, 2023 through July 28th.
Second.
Any questions? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. And the next item up on the agenda is Board of Education comments and discussion. Anybody have anything?
Wanted to throw out there, when we were at the NYSBA conference, we heard from some lawyers in one session, and they were talking a little bit more about Meet the Candidates Night. And there was some new information that was presented to us that brought up some questions. And I noticed it in the budget presentation tonight that we have a date set for that. I think it would be helpful for us to consult with our own legal team on some of the questions that arose in those topics to find out that we're operating with best practice for that.
Thank you, Trish. And, you know, that makes me think about our own board development and I'm really proud of the work this board does in terms of our learning and participating in the New York State School Board Association. We've done that for many years and have a pretty overwhelmingly positive participation in that. And for folks who can't attend that, they've been attending virtual conferences and also attending. Our two new board members have attended their training for fiduciary training and governance training. So I'm really proud of that work, and I'm excited to be able to participate at the National School Board Convention. There is a large host of programs that we're going to be able to participate in addition to bringing some of the positive work that we've done here and share that nationally. I'm excited to hear that information and be able to bring it back to our district. So I just say congratulations to the work that the board has done in really through the years, the board development. And that's a great example of, you know, something that you took note of in one of the programs, Trish, and brought to us so that we can work at our highest level. So thank you. Anybody have anything?
I've got another one. Did you have one?
Nope.
Okay. We had talked at our last meeting, throwing out the idea of a student member, and we got some information that that's really quite involved and would have to be something that we explore and put it to community vote. And I think it would be a good idea to maybe back up just a little bit. We like the idea because of the idea of student voice. I'm curious to hear from the district if having a student involved with the board matches some of the educational goals and interests of our older high school students. And how will that serve our students to be involved on that level?
You know, I was thinking about this, Trish, and I wonder if if we're putting our toe in the water and getting started, having maybe student council representative do a monthly report. I don't know if that's something that would be of interest or realistic to do, but a report out to the board on student happenings. That might be a way to begin student involvement. It's just an idea.
You know, I'm thinking about what Rosemary said last time too, you know, and I want to, like, I think Trish, what you're saying too is, you know, we like the idea of it, but is it something that is a good idea? And is it something that in some capacity students would have an interest in? And, you know, what could that look like if they were interested? And, you know, I mean, in my own mind, I was thinking about the Seal of Civic Readiness and what are some of the components of that program? Could this be a piece that maybe not, I don't know, it's just something I was thinking, but I think your point, I took that to heart, students are busy and these meetings are late and it's a long day and, so what would, if is it a good idea in general for everybody? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just questioning like the purpose of it. Would it benefit the student or would it benefit us saying we have a student representative? And so I like the idea of having an elected student by the student council. They're representative of the students because they're elected by the students to present to us rather than someone who's chosen to present to us for what reason and what purpose. So I like Katie's idea of having an elective, if that's what we're looking for, is to hear student voice. I don't know exactly what we're looking for, so.
I think what you kind of just said it right now, Rosemary, is we got to figure out first, what are we trying to do?
Right.
And which path do we go down?
Right.
There's a lot of things that we do that the students might have zero interest in or it can't be included in. So we need to be
Exactly.
respectful of the role that they're going to play.
Right.
But I think that's the first step is what are we trying to do? And
Right.
how do we get there?
I kind of look at it in a different angle of what would they want us to know? Like not what we want to do or like what we want to hear from them, but would the student council, the government want to come and present some information to us, some requests, some ideas that they have? And if so, I would encourage them to, doesn't have to be every month. Maybe it's once a semester or, whatever they want, but I hope that they feel welcome to come here and be on the agenda. And if there's a way that they could be put on the agenda when they want to, I absolutely want to hear from the students, so. hopefully that
Thank you, Donna.
I
Good
do-
point.
Donna.
I do too. And I think, obviously, we are all sitting here because students are at the center of our equation. So student perspective is valuable inherently. And I think a lot of times I'm sure people in class, students often surprise us with their perspectives, things that all the grownups haven't thought of. And so there's an opportunity in this discussion for getting student perspective. But there's also an opportunity for students to engage civically and, and to be representative voice. And I think that that's a really valuable opportunity too, if it was something that people wanted to pursue.
So do we feel comfortable throwing it to Superintendent Luthringer and asking for some feedback from particularly the high school? And
Yeah, so I'm just listening to the board's dialogue here. I think the one thing I just want to also mention is that we do have students sit on a variety of district committees. They do certainly have a voice. I know that there's student government, student leadership. So I think certainly from what I'm hearing, it would be a good kind of dialogue to bring to them and see what their thoughts are, and that we can report back to the board on what they're thinking. We can kind of explain the process and some of the dialogue that's happened here, and certainly come back with some thoughts and ideas from them. Does that make sense?
There's nothing that's stopping them from saying, hey, can I get on the agenda for the next meeting? Correct? Like whether it's the student, any student body.
No, I mean, it's as we know, it's an open meeting, so certainly students are welcome to come and attend and participate and certainly speak if they want. There's nothing preventing them.
And I think it would be interesting to check in with our educators as well to find out if there's anything that aligns with lessons that are being taught in the classroom and the standards that are set that, we can partner with.
Okay.
Different topic. So on a different topic, I was just, making note on the topic of pre-K that, in the recent information that we've received from the Commissioner of Education, Betty Rosa, and Governor Hochul, that there is, in the Board of Regents, there's this sort of commitment that has been being brought forward to toward universal pre-K for all three, 3 and 4-year-olds. And I just, seeing that is sort of jumping out in a lot of the literature that we have had coming at us and just, considering the implications that that could have for our school district. And I know some of us, have had some conversations about that before, and just making note of it, I guess, yeah.
I'm happy to comment if that works. So I think, and I may have mentioned this in some of the board superintendent correspondences, but we've, one of the things that it is absolutely true, the state is incentivizing school districts through additional funding to create universal pre-K programs, really 4-year-old programs. In our community, we know that there is a active and long history for pre-K services and pre-K education through Caldwell. And my goal this year was to really establish a relationship with Caldwell. So Megan Quillinan is the new director there. So I went over and met and got to see the facility. We also invited her over and she spent time with Mr. Conway and actually Ms. Gerson back there. And toured and got to really experience the elementary school. And there's further discussions about curriculum and alignment between pre-K and what they're doing and what we're doing in kindergarten as well. So that was really our first goal. But I would be hard pressed to say that's not something that we are absolutely looking at. And certainly conversations I've had with Mr. Conway, when you think about our mission and our goals of our district, and especially the one about closing the gap, I think of how beneficial a full day pre-K program would be for our students, in a variety of reasons. Costs, we would not charge families; it would be open, and that's certainly a barrier for some of our families to seeking out preschool education. That being said, there's quite a bit of planning and work that needs to go into that, and stakeholder work. One of the thoughts I, had also is we have to close our elementary school for the entire summer due to the asbestos work and the HVAC project. So it'd be really difficult to plan a program for the fall, but I certainly see us planning towards that for the future. And that's certainly a goal that would align with our school district's goals and values, but also knowing that we can figure out a way to partner and work closely with Caldwell. I think that's going to be a goal. And I have expressed to the director as well that, the state's really emphasizing that public schools really take a hard look at offering this. So I think it's not a shock to them by any means. And it's hopefully there's a way that we can work together to provide sort of the best of both worlds for our students.
Thank you.
John, has there been any more conversation beyond the pre-K to outreach and opportunities that public schools can provide for early childhood education even earlier than pre-K?
I would say not at this time. I mean, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Are you saying before, 3-year-olds and even before?
I'm thinking more of outreach rather than in person, having a cohort come in, just opportunities where we have educational materials available to the community and, particularly targeting early childhood education.
I'd have to get back to you on that question.
Doesn't Mrs. Crossman have a book program for
Yeah,
infants and?
Yeah, and I mean, I'd have to have Mr. Conway. There's other opportunities coming to mind here.
Bag club or something for little ones. I remember that. I think they still have it, right? Yeah, great. That was wonderful.
Any other discussion, comments? Okay. The next item, thank you, everybody. That was really a lot of good information and ideas and questions. The next item on the agenda is our second public comment period. And do we have nobody signed up? Anybody have a desire to come up in our second public comment? Okay. Then the next item on the agenda is a proposed executive session. So the Board of Education of the Lake George Central School District proposes entering into an executive session for the purpose of discussions regarding the employment history of a particular person or persons and contract negotiations.
Moved.
Any question, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries.
And we don't come back.
Um,
Public session.
Well, there is a possibility that we would come back into open session. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.